In today's second episode of my series about AI engineer skills for beginners, we are looking at code generation using AI. We will look at the differences between generating code using GPT-4 in the browser versus the API, code assistant tools like GitHub Copilot and Replit AI. We will generate code from a sketch in my notebook using multimodal features like GPT Vision, and how can AI engineers generate code using open source models like CodeLlama 2 and more. All of these points will of course have practical examples that you can try too, but now let's just get started. If you missed the first episode, you might consider going back and watch that. It's about the OpenAI API and Python. You don't have to do that, but I will leave a link in the description. But today, code generation, of course, this is skills for beginners, but hopefully as we advance together, we will do more advanced stuff. So that's gonna be interesting. But let's just start off by looking at why AI engineers should learn to use AI tools to generate code. So I have some points here, like these are not 100% perfect, but I put on like efficiency and productivity, automated repetitive task, reducing time spent on like boilerplate code. So this will speed up your development process, generate codes, test and documentation. So it's really good for like small tasks, like in the beginning, that's very smart to start with that. And then you kind of can expand your creative horizons. So you can focus on innovative solutions that could, connect different AI tools together with APIs. So I think that's kind of the most interesting part. Of course, natural language is a big part of this. So is English the next big programming language? Who knows? So coding using like natural language kind of dramatically changes your workflow. At least for me, I found it much more easy. Next up, we have adaptive learning and skill refinement. At least for me, I have learned a lot just by watching these AI tools just write code. They are very good at comments, explaining things. You can ask detailed things about this style, right? So if something you're kind of wondering about, you can just ask it and it will have a very good explanation. AI assisted custom scripts. So I kind of like this. Before I was kind of hesitant to just create a script for a single use case, because it took a lot of time, and if you're just gonna use it once, maybe it wasn't worth it. But I think now, with the speed and the help and assistance from these AI tools, like let's say GPT-4, you can just describe it in natural language, and you get this single-use script very quickly. So I think it's worth it now. And this is something I think is important, that is bridging the skill gap, because I have never been like a good coder or something like that, but like when I use these AI tools, I kind of close the skill gap a bit, because like the demand and supply will probably go up, and with these tools maybe more people can get into software development. Like I would never be like high level, but like with using these tools I can kind of close the gap a bit. So I think that's very cool. And of course we have the 10,000x software dev dream, and I think this can only be achieved by at least with an assist from an AI powered system, hopefully controlled by a human. So these are kind of the points I put down why you should learn this if you want to get into AI engineering. But there's a lot of other stuff too that could have been on this list. But just some interesting things, and I found it really exciting to learn more about software development in this way when you have this kind of AI assistant by your side, right? But now let's just get into the practical stuff. So I think we're just gonna kick it off with generating code with ChatGPT, GPT-4. So I put down some things we are gonna, what you can use it for here. So let's just go quickly over that, and then we're gonna do like the practical examples of this. So system prompts, this is something I always try to use when I have the opportunity, because I think this, just gives better outcome. You can kind of structure the format you want, as you will see in the example soon. We have clear and precise prompting. This is kind of a given. So if you are more precise, so let's say you want a Python code, just say you want a Python code. Give context, asking for a function, describe inputs, outputs, and purpose. We have iterative interactions. So instead of like asking for like a complete solution, try to break it down step by step. You know the thing, chain of thought. This also produces better results, and sometimes you have to do like code in steps because you can't do like the full thing in once. API documentation as context. This is something I used in the previous episode. So like feeding in, if you have an API we haven't used before, maybe give get some context from like the documentation, use that as a context. This can like provide the model with precise information and just helps better results. Code commenting, this is also like you can set that in the system prompt, so you will get very good comments on each line of code. This just makes it easier to understand and more of an overview what this code is about. Debugging help, very good for that, you probably know that. And translating code between languages, this is also a very good feature using AI tools with code. So you can just go, let's say, from some kind of code over to Python, from Python to another code. And I think it just works very good, to be honest. At least the times I have tried that. But now let's just head over to ChatGPT and generate some code, talk about the system prompt, and do some practical examples. Let's start by looking at our system prompt. So you just go down here, settings, go to custom instructions. And here is kind of the system prompt I set for our example here. So you are a software development with deep expertise in Python programming. Your goal is to assist the users in writing high quality, efficient, and error-free Python code. So when responding, prioritize optimal and efficient solutions, ensure code is clear, readable, and adheres to Python's PEP 8 style guide. I like to always include that. Accompany your code with brief explanations or comments. Yeah, like I said, mention that in the system prompt. Always consider to handle potential edge cases to make the code robust. Seek clarity, input parameters, and expect output when users' request is vague. Ask follow-up questions. I also like to do that. Always think in a step-by-step way by creating a plan before you write the code. So this is something I like to do too, just so we can get like a plan first and then we get our code. Maybe if you read some papers about chain of thought and stuff, this just seems to produce better results. Yeah, pretty simple but quite powerful system prompt for these examples. I just want to mention that ChatGPT is about to be upgraded or updated. So if you see here, you can kind of see some people had already got this. So you have everything like in without switching. So you can have the advanced data analysis, Dolly tree browsing, probably, yeah, GPT Vision 2, all in GPT-4. I don't have that yet. So today we have to switch between the models or features, but that's fine. Doesn't really matter. But I wanted to start with something pretty simple and just see where this takes us. So let's just go, hello, can you create a Python code for a game of tic-tac-toe with a simple UI? All right, submit that. So hopefully now we kind of will get our plan first. As you can see here, we're going to use a library called Tinctor for the GUI or graphical user interface. So when we use our system prompts, we kind of get this format that I really like. We have a plan, we have some steps, and then we get the code. Because like now, GPT-4, the model has already read all of this, so it kind of knows the plan before it starts to write the code. And for some reason, pretty obvious, like if you have a plan before you start to do the job, just like as a human, it always works better, right, than just starting without having a plan. So this seems to work for large language models too, so I just found this very fascinating. But let's just let this run now, and then we are going to test it. So we have a function check winner on click. We have a restart game function. Do we get some comments here? Yeah, we have some check rows, check columns. So yeah, it looks fine. Create buttons. Yeah, I guess this adds comments. So yeah, that was about it. And we get kind of this explanation here at the end. So that's quite neat. So let's just copy this and try it out. So I'm just gonna go to my notepad here, paste in the code, save it as test.py, right? Okay, I'm gonna save that. Let's bring up the terminal here. cd python, cd, was it API? Clear this. Let's blow it up a bit and do python test. Oops, python test.py. Hey! Can we blow this up? No. But this is our tic-tac-toe game. Okay, okay. Player 0 or O wins. So that was it. Worked perfect, right? Pretty simple. So yeah, how quick was that? The UI worked, everything worked. So that's just an example of how quick you can do something like this. Like, let's say you wanted to write this code yourself. You probably have to spend, at least me, I had to spend hours on this. Because so, great start. Let's move on. Next up, let's have a look at coding assistant tools like GitHub Copilot and Replit AI. So I put down some points here we can go through before we take a look at the practical things. So you always want to define your goal, have a plan when you sit down to use the tools. That's kind of a given. You want to kind of segment your code. So GitHub Copilot performs best when the code is broken into smaller functions. So you always want to review and test each suggestion, because don't blindly accept all suggestions from like Copilot. That's same with Replit. You kind of need to review them, test before you kind of at least put it into production. Continuous learning. The more you work with Copilot, the better it gets an understanding of your coding style. Use for learning new languages. GitHub Copilot is especially helpful when working with unfamiliar programming languages. That's a good thing. Copilot has some keyboard shortcuts you can familiarize yourself with. Natural language queries. One of Copilot's standard features is its understanding of natural language. Yeah, we know that. Stay updated. All these kind of coding assistant tools is constantly evolving, so you gotta update them, stay updated with new features to kind of maximize the benefits. All of this kind of relates the same to Replit AI. I didn't specifically mention them in these notes, but it's kind of the same thing, as you will see soon. But there are some differences the way I use it, so I'm going to show you that. So I think we're just going to head over to start with Copilot and then go over to see about Replit AI. Here you can see we are in Visual Studio Code. We have the script we created in the previous episode that kind of does some chain prompting by using the GPT OpenAI API with GPT-3, or we use Text DaVinci in this case, 003. So how you can use Copilot. Let's start by going to the chat box here. Here you can kind of ask about your code. Can you explain chain.py for me? So I don't usually use the chat box much here. I kind of like the other feature. They call it autocomplete feature. I'm going to show you soon. But yeah, I kind of use Replit more for this, or ChatGPT. But you can see it works well. It explains like each variable, each function, and yeah. So it had this feature too. But what I like mostly about Copilot, and I think most people use it for, is kind of just to write code. So let's say we wanted an open file, a save file function that kind of did append here. We can go like def save, and now we can kind of see we get this grayed out area here. So instead of writing the whole thing, we can just click tab, right, accept. Then we can go back in here, change it to append, and we have a new function. So you can see this could save you a lot of time, right? This is the same with kind of this, let's say def fetch GPT. You can see it kind of finds the function here. Let's say we wanted to accept that. We can call it 2. We can change up the model, right? GPT-4. So you kind of get the point. Even down here, we can go summary chain 4, right? And we can go word. Let's go to 8, maybe. You can see it open file prompt 4. So you can see how this could save you a lot of time if you have, yeah, if you just know what you're gonna create. For my use case, it's a bit advanced maybe. I kind of create this small script. So for my use case, I think it's very neat and very good. But I don't use it a lot. So I am just on the free version sometimes to test it out. But I really recommend trying this, because if you do a lot of these things, you can save a lot of time. And as we've seen, like I think it was some kind of poll lately that like 92% of developers has used or are using some kind of AI tools. I think mostly GitHub Copilot when they do write programs. So very cool stuff. I think it's going to change a lot in the future and it's going to get much better. But yeah, really recommend checking this out. But now let's have a look at the other tool we have, coding assistant tool we have. That's going to be Replit AI. Okay, so over here on Replit, this is kind of the setup I use when I'm using this AI tools. So you can see we have these 3 windows here. We have our files here, folders. So I uploaded chatbot2.py. We have something called AI down here, so let's click on that. Then we get this, it's kind of a chat, right? You can talk to your code. So I like that. And this is just a pretty simple chatbot script, kind of we created in the previous episodes. Uses GPT 3.5 Turbo, and it's just a simple chatbot. So what I thought we can do was try to use Replit AI to create a UI for this, a very simple UI. So let's just start by asking AI. You can see we have some other things you can explain, ask, generate, modify. But let's just start by asking AI and ask about creating a UI for this. Okay, so let's take a look at my prompt here. So hello, can you create a UI in Flask for chatbot2 py.called app.py? I want a text box for the user input, a send button, and a response text box for the ChatGPT function that returns the message output. So let's just start off by that and see what kind of response we can get here. Okay, so we get the Flask app here and we get an index.html. Perfect. So what I like about this is that we can create a new file here now, and let's call it app.py, right? So this is blank. We can just click on insert. That shoots our code over here. So we can save that. And we can create a new file, index.html, right? Go further down, just insert that, save that. And now we can download app.py and index.html, right? And how quick was that? So this is kind of what I like with Replit AI. It's very easy to kind of turn your code here. It's pretty fast. You can just put it into files, download them. You can run them like in Replit here, but I like to download them and run them locally. So let's just do that. So I have put them right into the notepad here. So you can see here is kind of our index file. Here is our app. So let me save that. And yeah, let's try to run this. Okay, so let's go Python app.py. That's that. Okay, so here you can see the Flask app. We can just click on this IP here. Go to our browser. All right. Not very stylish, but chatbot, enter your message. So I think we're just gonna go, hello, can you give me some Python tips? Let's click send. Okay, here we got it. So you can see hello. We kind of repeated our message here. That's fine. The assistant response, of course, here are a few Python code tips. And yeah, how many did we get? 10, was it? 8? So pretty cool. Very quick to create a simple Flask UI using Replit here. So I really like this. I kind of use this more than GitHub Copilot because I feel that's a bit more for advanced users. I feel this is more up my alley. Kind of reminds me of GPT, but it has this very simple feature that you can just browse this over, insert, and you can just click download here if you want to download the file instead of running it in this browser here. But that works too. We have chat functions, we have replace. So this is very good for debugging. You can see we can ask about documentation, explain code. So we got a whole different things you can use here. So here it kind of explains the code. It's very quick. So I really recommend checking out Replit AI. And the best thing, it's kind of free now if you just want to try it. They also have a pro version, but yeah, give it a go. I'll leave a link in the description for this. So yeah, pretty cool stuff, right? Next up, we have something I am very excited about, and that is, of course, generating code from an LLM. That's kind of a large multimodal model. We can just call it GPT Vision for now because there aren't really any other models out there. So you can see I kind of put down LLM GPT Forward Vision gives us the first true multimodal model feature we can leverage. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna create a feedback loop. So this is something I have been experimenting with. So we kind of do like a feedback loop. Let's say we have a web page. So we create let's say you create a web page code. We get the output that's kind of visual. So we do a screenshot of the web page. We feed it back into the model. We iterate on that visual input. You can add text too. So we kind of have two multimodals. We have text and a visual input. So you can kind of get some iterative improvement on that. I think we're going to do an example of that. and you can do like a code from visual input. So I think I have some just some sketches in my notebook. We're gonna feed that in, maybe get some kind of UI code out. Let's try that. Like I said, debugging with visual input, that's kind of the same, but it works in conjunction with like textual error messages, but also it can help with these silent errors. Sometimes you don't have an error message, but nothing is working, right? So I have tested that out. I think there's a lot of undiscovered use cases here. It's still early, but I hope there's gonna be loads of use cases coming soon. And I really hope for an API soon, hopefully next week on the OpenAI development. I think it's like a show or something. But if you've seen this after that, maybe the API is here, we don't know. But hopefully, I'm hoping that before 2024. But let's just go into some practical stuff of how I have been using LLMs to create some code from visual inputs. So we are just gonna use the same system prompt as before, the software dev prompt, just keep it as is. So let's take a look at the image. So this is kind of the image I thought we can use. So this is, don't mind the coffee stain here. So you can see we have this very simple thing I just put down in my notebook. We have a front end here and we have a back end. So that's going to be the OpenAI API. Some GPT-4 thing. We have a GPT-4 response text box. It's kind of the same as we did in the previous example with the Replit. So let's upload this image here to GPT-4. So this is just on the default GPT-4 on ChatGPT Plus. Okay, so I just uploaded the image. I uploaded an image of a flow I want to create in a Flask app with a Python backend that uses OpenAI API. Can you help me create this Flask app? So let's just click submit and see what happens. Okay, so this looks quite interesting. So you can see it kind of come up with a plan here. So we're gonna set up the Flask environment, design the front end, including the matrix range. We're gonna display a GPT-4 text box, set up the backend with the OpenAI API, link to the front end to the backend. Perfect. So here you can see kind of does it step by step. Flask environment, creates the app.py code, designs the front end. We need the templates, index.html. Perfect. Set up the backend and link front end to backend using the Ajax call. And then kind of ask, do you need some assistance with the matrix range background? Yes. I just do yes. Okay, so let's add this. Kind of created the code for the matrix background. And then I just went, write a full new index.html because, yeah, I'm lazy. I don't want to copy and fit this into the other one. So we just got the full index.html. I copied that, right? I copied the app.py. I went back to my notepad. I kind of pasted in here into index.html. I pasted in the app here. Don't mind the API key. There's no point copying that. I'm gonna remove that after this video is posted anyway. And that is about it. So I think we're gonna try it now and see what happens. So let's open the terminal. Let's clear this. Let's go Python app.py. Okay, so far so good. We got our IP here. Oh yeah, that looks good, right? We have AskGPT-4. We have the matrix range. Looks awesome. Okay, so can we do anything? Can't see our letters. Hello? AskGPT-4. What is this? It responded. Oh wow, that is something. That is strange. Okay, so this is a good use case because now let's do a screenshot of this, paste it back in and ask what's going on here. Okay, so what I did now, here's the screenshot. I just went, this was the output. The text box did not display any text when I typed hello, and I got this strange answer. Let's go, what's going on here? It kind of went back and forward with a lot of suggestions. I think we come to the conclusion that it was just a placement of the response box. So we got a new code here. I asked for that. I copied it. I pasted it into our index.html. Let's try to run it now and see if this fixed it. So let's clear that. Okay. Let's run it again. And yeah, you can see the only thing was that this box came on top of this. So what are some Python code tips? So now we can ask GPT-4 or TextAvinci 3 in this case. So now you can see it works. So that kind of completes our app from that sketch in our notebook. So I just think that's really cool. I love the matrix rain, it looks good. Of course you can keep going back and forward, stylized it. But I think this kind of proved that we can do some iterate improvements by taking screenshots, feeding this back, going back, trying to fix it with some kind of conjunction between visual inputs and textual inputs. So we really kind of leveraged the multimodal feature of GPT-4 here. So pretty cool. I think we're gonna do one more thing with the GPT-4 Vision. So what I want to do is take a screenshot of kind of this UI from the thing we use when we use our open source model. So this is kind of the web UI for some text generation when we have open source models that I use. So I just want to screenshot this, right? So let's just screenshot this UI here, right? Like this. And then go back to GPT-4 Vision, paste in this, ask it to reverse engineer this UI and see how close we can get. So I just uploaded the image. Can reverse engineer the UI I uploaded an image of? Let's do it in a Flask app. So let's see what happens. Okay, so let's have a look here. So you can kind of see it went through this step by step. So it did an analysis of the UI we uploaded here. It created the Flask app we need to run. And in the directory templates, we need an index, HTML. Yes, that's great. Here we also need a style. So styles.css. So we just create a folder named static and put the CSS file in there. And that was about it. So let's take a look at the result. So remember, this part was kind of our template to reverse engineer. And this was the result. It's not half bad. I think it's a great start. Kind of the color is a bit off, but we kind of have our input and output. Generate, stop, continue, prompt and QA. So we have generate, stop and continue, prompt. The QA part here is a bit weird because that's a drop down. But like, it's kind of cool, right? You can kind of just take an image like this, reverse engineer it and almost replicate the same UI in just a couple of minutes. I just think that's a very cool feature, and I can see this can change a lot going forward. So it kind of, you can copy kind of any UI you see, right? I just think it's very cool. So I just wanted to show off that. But I think that's it for GPT Vision and multimodal now. So let's move on. Next, I wanted just to take a quick look at ChatGPT. I've put an ADA here. Don't confuse it with the embeddings model, but it's Advanced Data Analysis, previously called Code Interpreter. So this can generate and interpret code kind of in the browser. So it's a sandbox that can interpret Python. It has some pre-installed libs, can handle uploads and downloads. I think it's up to 100 megabytes. So I really like this feature. I think it's pretty cool. So it's kind of interactive Python environment. So I use it a lot for, like, you can use it for code testing, data analysis, visualization. We have some dynamic experimentation. I really like this part. So this is kind of what I have coded here, is like, it's kind of an agent behavior, because you can see it tries to, if it doesn't complete something, it starts over again, tries a different solution. No, that didn't work. Let's start over again. So maybe we can see some of that agent behavior when we test it out. Let's see. So we have code debugging. It's also good for that. And what I also like is you can kind of see the transparency here. It kind of shows the backend process. So you can click on the drop down and you can kind of see what's going on behind. So I'm a big fan of this feature. I think it's kind of underrated. I don't know. I really like it, at least. So I think we're just gonna do a few things with data analysis or code interpreter. And yeah, let's just do something. We're just gonna use the same system prompt as before. We're gonna go here, we're gonna select advanced data analysis. Just remember, this will be kind of baked into GPT-4 going forward. It might be already as you're watching this. But let's select advanced data analysis. I downloaded this data set here from Kaggle, fashion retail sales. So here is kind of the data set. It has some items, customers. Yes, I just picked a data set. So what we can do now is kind of upload this data set here, do a prompt, and get some kind of data visualization back by using Python, maybe like a matplotlib or something. But let's test it out and see how it works. So we're just gonna do it simple. Can you visualize 5 interesting trends from the data set I uploaded? Let's just hit submit. So you can see now it kind of looks at our system prompt, kind of does this step-by-step way of thinking, but now you can see it kind of working here. So you can see to read our file, it import pandas as PD, reads the CSV file, and it kind of gives us some kind of analysis of the data set. Pretty cool. To identify trends, consider exploring the following. Sales over time, top selling items, payment methods, review ratings, okay. Customer spending. Yeah. Sounds good. So what I really enjoy about this is looking kind of at the codes here it create, the Python codes. So remember, this is only Python. It's just a Python environment. So here you can say, yeah, it uses matplotlib, Seaborn, pandas plotting. So you can kind of see, and you can copy this code. You can bring it like to your, bring it like locally, use it your own. And you can see how quick it is. And this is kind of advanced stuff. This is something, maybe I could be able to do this, but it would take me ages. So it seems kind of, it shows here. Yeah, look how quick this is. I guess some of you have seen this already. So this is kind of sales over time. I guess this goes to 0, but you can kind of see the dates. Up and down, pretty cool. Yeah, let's do one more, yes. So again, you can see the backend here, but now it kind of continues from the same code that it already has in its sandbox. So it kind of saves some time there. That's pretty cool. And here are the top selling items. So we have belts, skirts, shorts, pants, and you can kind of see this bar chart. Pretty cool. Let's do one more, yes. Again, you can kind of see here that it just keeps expanding the original code here. But it kind of looks seamless. And after it, you can ask like, can we download this code? So 52% preferred credit card, 48% preferred cash. So we can just go on, and you can see how this is very good for data analysis. This kind of makes everyone into like not a data scientist, but you can kind of analyze your own data with just some simple prompts using this Python environment, and let ChatGPT do its thing here. I guess it's powered by GPT-4. So this is why I really love this. You can kind of use it for anything. I use it to kind of do my fantasy team. I upload stats from football games, fantasy things and stuff, and I kind of try to calculate what's the best transfer for my fantasy team. So that's just one use case if you want to try that. But now let's try another thing with GPT Advanced Data Analysis and see what other things you can use it for. So without uploading anything, I'm just gonna give an assignment here. So create a compounding interest calculator in Python. Number 2, create an advanced test set that can validate the code and test the compounding interest code. So let's see what happens here now. Okay, so you can see here, kind of created a plan for the compounding interest calculator. It created a plan for the advanced test sets. So we're gonna test for 0 interest rate, 0 time, principal amount, different combinations, and use this to verify the output. And you can see it kind of went ahead, created our compound interest function, and it tested it and returned its result. So if you invested $1,000 with an interest rate of 5 over 10 years, you would get 1,600 back or something. I think so. Then it went ahead and to create the advanced test sets. So here you can see some what I've called agent behavior. We're not going to see it in live time now, but it started with creating this, but it got an error. So it tried again. So I'll debug the issue by examining the output of the failing test case. So we kind of looked at that. The issue seems to be okay. So it tries again, creates a new test set, and runs it, and all test cases pass. So we kind of fixed its own error with me not intervening at all. So I would say that's kind of an agent behavior, right? And here's a summary of what we have done. Created an interest function. We did a test set. Ran the test to confirm that the function is working correctly. Perfect. So I really like the testing capabilities. Since we can interpret code, we can kind of do these different tests of different algorithms, functions, and a whole lot of other stuff you can just think of, right? So pretty cool stuff. I think that's gonna be it for the advanced data analysis for now. So let's move on. Next up is gonna be generating code using an LLM API. This could be GPT-4, ChatGPT Turbo, Bard, Claude 2 if you kind of need a 100K window. But I just put down some pros of using API directly. So you can kind of more integrate the automation into this. So you can set up system that autonomous generate and iterate on, let's say, Python code. Pick your model, like I just said. We can access some more advanced features here, like parameters, top K, tokens, and a lot of other stuff, right? Max tokens. You can kind of fine tune it to get it exactly as you want, right? So you don't overspend. It could be a consistent environment because these web UIs, they change over time, right? So this can affect what you're planning to do. It's very scalable. Customization, it provides more control over request and response format, yeah. And the ability to fine tune even your own model. So some cons I found here, it can be very complex. So you kind of need some technical knowledge. It's not that easy as just using ChatGPT browser. Yeah, cost can be more expensive if you have a lot of calls, right, for the API. And yeah, you can run into rate limits too. We're probably gonna cover this in another episode, but this can happen if you do a lot of API calls. You can kind of be restricted for a period. So that are some things about the LLM API. So I think we're just gonna, yeah, do some kind of automation, try to create a code and see what we can do with it using the API. This is what I created using the API to kind of generate some kind of Python code. So you can see we have an open file function, a save file function, pretty standard. This kind of is taken from the chain prompting script we created in the previous episode. We're going to set our API key. You can see we have the function chat with GPT-3. Here we have set our model to GPT-4 0613. It's kind of the newest API GPT-4 model. But you can see we did something here. We state our system prompt. So basically we just copied the system prompt from our previous interactions with the browser. So basically it's the same system prompt. You're a software dev with expertise in, yeah, exactly the same system prompt. So you can transfer this over to your code if you want to do that. We are not going to change any parameters here, but here we can kind of set parameters if we wanted to. We could kind of restrict the tokens to only output maximum, let's say 300, but we're just going to keep it as is now. Okay, so here you can kind of see our tree chain code here. So the first thing that's going to happen is we're going to open a file called input.txt, and this is going to be the assignment. Create a knapsack algorithm Python code example. So it seems a bit random, but we have a file called prompt.txt. This is going to be our first chain, and this is going to replace blog, right? So here's the assignment from your boss today, and the assignment is going to come in here from input.txt, right? Complete the assignment above. That is kind of our first chain. So the second chain is going to take that code output from this first prompt and feed it into prompt 2. That is going to be read and improve the following code. So here it wants to improve on the knapsack code we have created. And the final chain is going to be take that improved code, feed it into prompt 3, and rate the following code on a scale from 0 to 10 and report it to your boss, Chris. So that is gonna take the improved code into this and print it as this rating. So that is just basically a simple chain. So the plan is to create a code, improve it, and rate it. It's pretty simple, right? So let's try to run this and see what kind of results we can get. So I'm just gonna open up the terminal, clear, do Python chain.py, and let this run. Okay, so now the chain is complete. You can see here's our code. The knapsack problem is a classic problem. Here I will implement the O1 knapsack problem using dynamic programming. And it kind of, the problem statement, it creates the code here, as you can see. Right? And you can see here, we kind of, yeah, the final result will be stored in here, and the improved code. So this is kind of our next chain. The logic in your code is accurate and follows correct approach. However, there are some Python-specific improvements and best practices we can make. Clear variable names. Okay, so it kind of goes ahead, improves the code. At least it tries to. And here we have a rating. So I kind of like this. Dear Chris, I was asked to review a piece of code of implementing a classic a 0-1 knapsack problem using dynamic programming. Here are my thoughts. On a scale from 0 to 10, I would rate the original code a 6. It's effective and solves the problem, but there are several improvements that could be made with the best practices. So here's kind of the refactored code. After improvements, the code is clearer and in line with Python's best practices. Yeah, in certain contexts, further comments might have beneficial understanding. Best regards. So there was no best regards anyone, but yeah, you can kind of see this is how you can use the API, just an ID, to create something that is like a code, an improved code, and kind of a rating. This could be like an email or something. So yeah, that's one way you can use the API to create some code. I thought we can do something. So I'm gonna copy this improved code. You can go back to advanced data analysis and run a test set to see if this code works. So you can see I went back to advanced data analysis. Can you test this code for me? I pasted in the code. We got some kind of plan here. So we're gonna do a code review, a units test, and a performance testing. The code review seems to be recommended following the PEP 8 standards. That's good. Units test, let's start by normal cases. And we just go through some tests here, and it creates a full test program for knapsack. So here you can see all the test programs, and it runs it. Ran 5 tests in 0.09 seconds. Okay, results. 5 runs, 0 errors, failure 0. Great, all tests has passed, which suggests your knapsack function is working as expected. Yeah, so that was pretty cool. I don't think we're gonna create any more code with the API in this episode, but definitely going forward, we are gonna do more with the API. So I think we're just gonna move on to our last slide. And that is gonna be generating code with an open source LLM, like in this case, Code Llama 2 7B. So this is fine-tuned for coding. I put a link here. I'm gonna show you that. So running local, so you can run this on your own hardware. You can customize the model. So this opens up for kind of, you can do whatever you want with this open source model. You can even go into the weights and stuff, but that's a bit high level for now. It's open source. The models and tokens to use are free, but of course you are a bit hardware dependent, and it's a bit more tricky to set up and just using out of the box GPT-4 or something. The setup we are gonna use is we downloaded the model using Hugging Face, and we have a web UI setup, as I showed you previous in this episode. It's not as hard as you think. I might do this. I think I'm gonna cover this in our open source LLM episode that's gonna come in this series later. But again, it is hardware dependent, so you kind of need at least one dedicated kind of high-end GPU. I don't know exactly the requirements in my head now, but I think it's like at least 8 GB of video memory. I think I have like a 4080 here. Thank you, NVIDIA. And that's have 16, so it runs pretty well on my GPU. But I think that's it for the notes. Let's just take a quick look at this Code Llama model. We're not going to spend a lot of time on it because I'm going to do a dedicated episode to open source later. So this was the link I had. So this is introducing Code Llama, an AI tool for coding. So you can see some takeaways here. The Code Llama is an AI model built on top of Llama 2, fine-tuned for generating and discussing code, free for research and commercial use. So that's quite cool. We're not going to go into any details here, but you can read about this if you want to. I think it was 500 billion tokens, was it trained on or something? Trained with 500 billion tokens of code and code-related data. So yeah, pretty cool stuff. And as I said, I used Hugging Face. Thanks to the bloke guy, I used his version. I think it's a bit compressed. And there's where I downloaded this. But again, I'm going to do an episode on open source later, so I'm not going to go into any detail. But let's just now fire up the web UI and do some quick generation with the open source model. Okay, so we fired it up here. Let's see if we can just launch this. Yeah, we can just follow this. And this is pretty much the setup I have. So you can see this is like the text generation web UI. I might leave a link to this. I'm gonna look for that. So we can select our models here. So I have already installed Code Llama 7B, as you can see here. I'm just gonna select one of these now, and we're gonna load it, right? So loading the model here, successfully loaded. And then you can just go to, I think we're gonna do some adjustments in parameters here. So let's set our tokens to 500. Since it's code, just set the temperature to 0. Yeah, I don't think I'm going to touch anything else. So keep it as is. Let's go to default and let's type in a prompt here and see what we get back. Okay, so we're just going to go, you're a software dev with expertise in Python. Can you create a 0-1 knapsack algorithm in Python? Response : and click generate. So with kind of mine, how can I say this? GPU setup here, it's quite quick. I would say it's like a bit slower than ChatGPT, maybe as quick as GPT-4. Okay. This is a dynamic programming solution, solves the knapsack problem. Nested two loops. Okay, so we get an explanation too. That's very interesting. Yeah, that's a very good explanation actually. So pretty impressive. Remember, this is running locally on my computer now. Wow, that was a very long explanation. Okay, so what we're gonna do, copy this, and let's just try to verify it on ChatGPT data analysis. So I just go, hello, can you test this algorithm? So just paste it in. Okay, so we just went through the code here. Everything looks good. There was one thing, it kind of printed out false instead of 0. So you can see the analyze GPT advanced data analysis went in and changed that. So it kind of changed the zeros with zeros instead of false. But the code was correct. It was only that it printed out false or returned false instead of 0. So it just changed that up and passes all the test cases, including the edge cases. So pretty cool stuff. A lot of good things to say about open source. I'm a big fan of this. So we are definitely gonna do more open source stuff. Test out a bunch of different models. But I know like it's not for everyone. So we're just gonna do an episode on it, like dedicated, so you can watch if you want to. So I'm not gonna spend any more time on this. Like if you don't have the hardware, this is not really relevant for you. I guess you can run it in cloud and stuff, but for now, I think we're just gonna end it with this for open source for this time. Let's check out some key takeaways before we end this episode. So I didn't spend too much on the key takeaways here. I just put down a few points. But I think like if you want to get into like some kind of AI engineering, I think you should learn at least the basics of how to generate code with AI tools, because like we looked at today, it can be like a massive time saver. At least it's just maybe some single use cases script you need just now, or there's some other scripts, maybe a part of a bigger project. We don't exactly know what kind of these tools are gonna develop over time. So they can probably produce whole projects. Who knows when? This can be like years away, months away, who knows? So I think like you should at least learn the basics of generating code with this. And I put down skill gap closer. For me it is, at least. Of course this can vary. Maybe people are very good at already writing code just by themselves without any tools that assist you. So then maybe you don't get this benefit as at least I do. But yeah, I guess more people can learn to write software now using AI tools. And this can include AI engineers that has some kind of other background that doesn't come from software engineering, that come maybe from infrastructure, that doesn't know so much about software dev. They can use this as a gap closer. I think that's cool. And I put down practice makes perfect. Just use all the tools, try, test, iterate, discover new capabilities. Just try. Just practice makes perfect. That's all I gotta say. And I think there's much more to come in this space going forward, like the venture money going into this. Do we get autonomous agents that write code? So it's a really exciting space, and I'm quite excited to see where this goes. So it could have been more takeaways, but I'm just gonna keep it short. But I think if you watch the whole video, you kind of have your own thoughts about this. Maybe you have done a lot of this on your own. Maybe you have other thoughts than me. That's fine too. You can leave a comment if you want. So this is not a perfect compendium of how you should do this. This is just kind of my ideas, my experiences. People have different experiences, so you might agree with all of this. But I think there are some things, some ideas you can take away from this. But if you made it all the way here, thank you very much. And hopefully I'll see you in the next episode of this AI engineering series. I really enjoy this, and I got a good response on the previous video, so happy to be doing more of this. But other than that, have a great day, and I'll see you in the next one.